On the day you disappeared, I wish I had seen it clear. Gregory thought it was his shadow at first. He'd walked past a scuffed, colorful wall, trying to find his way back to the charging pod he had left Freddy in. He'd found it easily enough, but he couldn't escape the strange way his shadow moved across the wall. The shadow was opaque as an object with mass would be, blotting out the colors and scars gored into the wall. Gregory had been fairly confident in his walk, knowing that dangerous animatronics were not roaming in the area, but his shadow seemed hunched, cowardice, like any step further could set off some kind of invisible mine. Gregory regarded the shadow as he turned the corner, fully expecting the shape to bend and conform to the structure of the corner, the floor, the atmosphere. So he couldn't help the little yelp he let out when the shadow seemed to peel off of the wall to stand, in space, next to Gregory. The boy froze, staring at the mass, watching it shudder, black velvet against the bright neon of the atmosphere. Neither Gregory nor the shape moved for a few long and intense seconds. Gregory thought about calling Freddy for help, but something about the shape seemed absolutely terrified, standing in the vastness of an echoing hallway, observing the dead air with quiet terror. Gregory swallowed his uneasiness and took a small step toward the figure. "Hello," he tried, his timid voice loud in the vacuum of trepidation. It seemed Gregory's voice startled the figure, because its form stuttered and took a few steps backwards, back where they had come. All its energy shifted, leaning back, looking like it was about to bolt. "No, it's okay," Gregory placated, hands out. He leaned down like adults would do when talking to him, and put on the gentlest, friendliest smile he could. "It's okay. I'm Gregory. Who are you?" The shape shifted again, like it was shuffling its feet. Another moment passed. Gregory was afraid the shape would simply vanish at any second, too terrified of the attention or the space. Then, slowly, the shape became more defined, less like the nebulous general form of a young human, and more akin to that of a small, trembling boy. A face materialized inside the shadow, where the head would be. Big, teary eyes, followed by a gently sloped nose and chubby, adorable cheeks. The boy couldn't be much older than Gregory himself. The boy's form seemed entirely pale. His hair, his face, his oversized striped shirt, it all seemed muted. Maybe it was just because the entire pizzeria was so bright and overstimulating all the f***ing time, but it was still somewhat eerie. The boy looked at Gregory with his dewy silver eyes, and his lip trembled. "Hi," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. The voice had an air of poise, not like it was commanding, but more like it was polite. Maybe it was a slight British accent that the boy had that made him seem more distinguished that way. "Hi," Gregory said again, widening his smile in an attempt to look as kind and welcoming as possible. "Are you lost, kid?" The boy just looked at him, like he wasn't sure how to answer. He glanced around for a few seconds, observing the lights, the posters. He flinched a little as the overhead speaker spit out a moment of static. He started, paused, and tried again, looking back at Gregory. "I've never seen this place before." Odd. "Okay," Gregory said. "It's okay. I have a friend who can help you. I've been trying to get out of here for a few hours. We can leave together." The boy nodded, tragic eyes cast to the ground. "Okay." He shuffled up to Gregory, extending his hand. Gregory gladly took his little hand in his and pulled him gently to his hip. The boy's hand was cold and shaking. Gregory regarded the boy, looking at his face, trying to see if he recognized him at all. He didn't look local, especially with the style of clothes he was wearing. He was dressed like how people in that Breakfast Club movie looked. If he wasn't so muted, Gregory was almost positive the pattern on his shirt would rival the pizzeria in vibrancy. The boy's hair was a curly mess, all riled up and unkempt. There was a spot, just shy of his temple, where the hair was completely flat and patchy. It looked wet. Gregory resisted the urge to fluff it up to match the rest of his hair. The boy didn't look at Gregory, just stared resolutely at his scuffed sneakers. Gregory could see, though, the dark tear streaks that ran across his round cheeks, like the skin itself was stained. Gregory wasn't sure what this was. "Let's go find my friend, okay?" Gregory reassured, squeezing the boy's hand a bit. "His name's Freddy. He's really nice." The boy perked up at the name. His shimmering eyes flew over to Gregory. Somehow he looked even more terrified. "Fredbear?" His voice was a mortified whisper. Gregory paused. "No?" he said, not entirely sure what a Fredbear was. Maybe he had just misheard. "Freddy. He's nice, I promise." The boy looked wildly unsure. Something severely haunted traveled across the boy's face, some kind of emotion that Gregory was not keen to identify. It was a mature, deeply intrinsic stare. It made him look much older. Gregory squeezed the boy's hand again. "I promise," he repeated, hoping he sounded convincing enough. The boy didn't say anything. He just simply sighed and lowered his gaze again, his hold on Gregory's hand getting impossibly tighter. With that, Gregory started leading the boy down the hall, towards where he knew Freddy was charging. The boy toddled behind him, silent as all could be. The only sound that came from him were small sniffles and the scuff of his sneakers against the linoleum. The silence made Gregory itch, especially since he knew they were safe. He turned his head and shot the boy an encouraging look, though the boy didn't meet his eyes. "What's your favorite animatronic?" The boy's step stuttered for a moment before he looked at Gregory out of the corner of his eye. "I don't have one." "Bah," Gregory said. "Come on, you gotta have one. Well, they're scary right now, but you gotta admit some of them look really cool, especially the old ones." The boy blinked. "The old ones?" "Yeah," Gregory said, guiding them around the corner. "Like Bonnie, or Foxy." The kid shuddered. "I don't like either of them." Gregory huffed. This kid was hard to please. Just as Gregory was about to say something else, the boy piped up. "I used to like Fredbear. A lot." Gregory hummed. He wasn't sure which animatronic that was. Still, it sounded really close to Freddy. It probably was, but the name itself he didn't recognize. Gregory did notice, however, the boy's emphasis on the phrase, "used to." "Why not anymore?" Gregory asked. He looked away from the boy to scan the hallway. Thankfully, he saw the charging pod at the end of the corridor. He could see Freddy's eyes glowing beneath the glass. The boy let out a particularly heavy breath. It was like it was a difficult question to answer. "He bit me." Gregory paused and looked at the boy, startled. "He bit you?" he echoed, trying hard not to reveal how much that sentence shook him to his core. "Mm-hmm," the boy mumbled. "Right on my head." Chills crawled through Gregory's spine. He looked closer at the boy. There, barely visible against his hairline, where the odd patch of hair was matted, he could see faint marks. They circled the boy's chin, around his ear and into his scalp. There were only faint spots of slightly lighter skin, paler than his complexion. They did, in fact, look like tooth marks. It suddenly clicked. The wetness in the boy's head was blood. The kid was dead. Whoever this Fredbear was probably the thing that killed him. Gregory thought he probably should have caught on to that sooner, given the solid shadow and all, but it was still a startling realization nonetheless. This boy was nothing but a spirit, wandering the hallways of some forsaken building he didn't recognize, surrounded by animatronics that resembled the very thing that killed him, however long ago. No wonder he was scared. "Oh," Gregory breathed. "Well, Freddy doesn't bite, if that helps." The boy sniffed again and shook his head. Still, though, he kept his pace at Gregory's side. As the two approached the charging unit, the door on the capsule opened with a faint hiss, revealing the bear that stood inside. Gregory found himself smiling at his friend despite everything, his grin big and toothy. "Freddy!" he greeted, bounding up to the animatronic, dragging the poor boy along. "All charged up?" "Hello, superstar," the bear greeted with a charming wiggle of his ears. His eyes lit up as they fell upon his little companion. "Indeed. I'm confident we can travel to Roxy Raceway now." "Oh, yeah. The decommissioning." Gregory had forgotten. "Cool," Gregory said as Freddy stepped out of the charging station. The boy at his side released a shrill cry of terror. Gregory startled and gripped at the boy's arms as he tried to bolt, embracing him and holding his shaking little body. The boy protested, yelling nonsense about a Michael and calling for help from his father. Kid! Gregory pleaded, trying to get the boy to pay attention to him rather than the looming animatronic who looked on at the scene calmly. Gregory huffed out a breath of frustration and grabbed the kid's face with his hands. The boy's eyes were wild, glued to the animatronic, terror clear as day on his pudgy face. Whatever fear Gregory had felt while traversing this place was pale compared to the hell this boy had experienced. "Please," the boy begged. His form was staticky. Something bloomed on the side of his head, towards his matted hair. A line formed from the top of his lip, across his eye and brow, all up and around his head. The line widened, bubbling with some sort of fluid. It looked like his skull was splitting open. "It's okay. Oh, kid, it's okay," Gregory said, trying to keep his panic down. "Freddy's okay. He'd never hurt a fly. He's been helping me. He won't hurt you, I promise." The boy continued to struggle, and his head continued splitting. One of his eyes was starting to melt. Taking a chance, Gregory released the boy and ran up to Freddy. He wrapped his arms around Freddy's massive metal leg and clung to him, never taking his eyes off the boy. The boy stood, alone, a few feet in front of the pair, watching with horrified eyes. He ushered for Gregory to return to his side, eyes flicking up towards Freddy. Gregory looked up at the bear. Freddy gazed back, concern evident in his eyes. He ground his metallic teeth. Before Freddy could say anything, Gregory looked back at the kid. "See?" he said. He grabbed Freddy's hand and placed it on his own head, letting the weight of the limb ground him. The boy looked like he was about to faint. Gregory hoped he couldn't. Easily, Freddy curled his claws gently into Gregory's hair, as a parent would to their child. Gregory breathed in a deep sigh. "It's okay." The boy continued to stare for a long few seconds, standing so still as if one movement would set Freddy into some kind of homicidal rampage. Obviously, and thankfully, Freddy did no such thing, and the boy began to calm down. His head started to fuse back together. His form became more solid. Gregory released a sigh and offered an encouraging smile. "You don't have to like him, kiddo, but you can trust him." The boy looked Gregory in the eyes, his silver gaze imploring and distant. It took him a few more seconds, but after the time passed, he gave a faint and hesitant nod. When he glanced back up at Freddy, his gaze was a little calmer. Gregory followed the boy's eyes and looked up at Freddy, smiling. "Sorry about that. He doesn't like the animatronics too much." Freddy gazed at Gregory. Something in his eyes was odd, though, like he wasn't too sure what was going on. Gregory's smile became strange. It wasn't like Freddy to be so apathetic. "I see," Freddy said slowly, glancing up and around in the air. Who are you referring to?" Gregory blinked. "What?" Freddy shifted on his big metal feet, like being suddenly put on the spot made him uncomfortable. "Whoever you're talking about, Gregory, I cannot see them." His gaze then sharpened with concern and looked back at Gregory. "Are you feeling all right? Are you ill, perhaps?"
"What? I'm fine," Gregory said, pulling out of Freddy's gentle grasp. "Do you not see the scared kid standing in front of us? No offense."
The boy shook his head. His fear was replaced with some kind of distant concern.
"Another kid,"
Freddy said, sounding alarmed.
"There's another kid here."
"Yeah." Gregory hedged. He didn't know if the kid knew he was dead or not. He wasn't sure how that worked. "He's lost, like me."
"Oh."
He still didn't sound like he knew whether to believe Gregory or not. Freddy looked out into the space in front of them.
"Do not be afraid. We will help protect you,"
Freddy vowed, staring into a space where the trembling kid definitely wasn't.
"If Gregory trusts you, then I do too."
The boy's eyes were wide, this time less with fear and more with the profound sense of awe. He was still scared and teary-eyed, but at least his head was whole and he wasn't screaming. He glanced back at Gregory and took a deep breath, steadying himself. Gregory took that as a good sign. He smiled at the boy, returning to his side. He was thrilled to notice the small smile he got in return. "We'll just follow Freddy. He knows this place, super well." Gregory leaned in, whispering in a way Freddy could definitely hear. "And he knows where all the candy machines are." That made the boy give a little giggle. Gregory was ecstatic. Slowly, the three made their way to the main atrium, Freddy leading the way. Gregory stuck by the boy's side, being a beacon of comfort as the kid's eyes roved the vast space. Despite everything, there was awe glittering in his wide eyes. Even Gregory could admit, past all the feral animatronics and particularly awful security bots, it was a pretty cool place.
"The raceway is this way,"
Freddy said, pointing ahead of them with a single blue claw.
"We can find Roxy and help her there."
Gregory sucked in a short breath. Hopefully he wouldn't have to harm her like he had to do with Chica. He wasn't confident that would be the case, though. "Sounds good, Freddy," Gregory said as evenly as he could. Then he sighed, once again feeling the weight of the entire situation settle on his shoulders. He was tired, deeply so. He wasn't sure how much longer he could go without taking some sort of substantial rest. The boy at his side seemed to sense Gregory's sudden onslaught of exhaustion, and looked at him, his eyes roving Gregory's face. Gregory offered a smile, seeing worry evident in the boy's gaze. "You feeling better, little dude?" The boy didn't answer, but he did draw Gregory's arm into his little chest, squeezing the limb with both of his chilly arms. He rested his cheek on his shoulder for a second, standing still, simply hugging Gregory's arm. Something in Gregory's heart twisted as he watched this kid, the stranger, provide comfort despite his own guaranteed fear. This kid did not deserve to die so young. Who was this boy? "Thank you," Gregory murmured, taking a moment to press his cheek against the top of the boy's head. He wasn't sure how he was able to feel the boy's cool skin or the dry curls of his hair if the kid was indeed a ghost, but it was a welcome sensation. Gregory wasn't sure the last time he felt the touch of another person, even if this person wasn't living or breathing at all. As shitty as it was for this kid to be here at all, selfishly, Gregory was thankful for his gentle presence. Gregory glanced up, sensing Freddy's eyes on him. The bear was regarding him softly, a genuine look of empathy swimming in his expression. How he was even capable of such micro-expressions, Gregory would never know, but he was thankful for the animatronic's full heart. It was clear he was still hesitant to believe the existence of the little ghost child, but at the very least he didn't dismiss the idea. Stranger things have happened.
Do we need to rest?
Freddy asked gently, his low voice a rumbling murmur against the neon air.
We can rest if you need to, Gregory.
The boy glanced up at Gregory, reflecting the same sentiment with only his slate eyes. Gregory sighed a little, before finally coming to terms with just how tired he was. That'd be nice, he admitted. Just for a bit, though. I don't want to get caught on our butts. Freddy chuckled and stepped up into Gregory's space. The other boy stiffened a bit in Gregory's embrace, but otherwise seemed content with Freddy's approach. Freddy knelt in front of the two of them, only addressing the one he could see. He put his hand on Gregory's shoulder, the one not occupied by the boy's resting head. The weight of his hand was grounding.
I will protect us. Do not worry. We can rest for as long as we need.
Freddy then paused, the servo somewhere in his head whirring.
I'm sure your friend could do with rest too, wherever they are.
Gregory couldn't stop a little breath of a laugh, glancing down at the boy's gentle face. He seemed content, all things considered, and offered Gregory an encouraging smile. Gregory didn't think the boy could get tired, not anymore, but it clearly didn't matter. I think he'd appreciate that. A few minutes later, the three of them found and settled against one of the atrium walls. Freddy stood guard, his eyes flickering to and fro, ensuring their safety like the hemming protector he was. Gregory got comfy as he could against the wall, dragging his knees up to his chest to rest his head. The boy sat next to him, mirroring his position, picking at one of the scabs on his knees. Gregory wondered if he felt it at all, or if it was just a little nervous habit. I asked you before, Gregory hummed, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. The boy met his gaze, waiting. You probably didn't hear me, huh? The boy cocked his head. What's your name, kiddo? The boy shifted his weight on his haunches, blinking his big, somber eyes. A moment passed before he whispered his answer. Evan. Gregory hummed, nodding into his knees. I like that name. I hope we can be friends. Gregory wasn't too sure where that had come from, that reaching little offer. The cynical part of his brain wanted to scoff at that hope, dismiss it because of everything about the situation. But another part, a larger part in his brain, liked that little feeling of hope, especially when it was attached to someone who seemed to understand. Evan gave Gregory the biggest smile he had seen since they had met, like that was the best thing he had heard in years. His eyes glittered so brightly it almost felt like the color of his body was becoming more saturated. For a split second, it seemed like Evan was as real and tangible as Gregory was. That sounds nice, Evan responded, his voice soft with breathy astonishment. A boy of few words, not of emotion. Lulled by the enthusiasm of Evan's small, gentle tone, Gregory settled into a nice, easy rest.
These are Roxy's eyes?
Okay, maybe Gregory needed to practice his tact.
Oh, yeah,
Gregory grumbled, shuffling his feet.
There was an accident on the raceway.
Freddy, who stood in front of Gregory, eyes slightly brighter than they once were, shuddered, his big metallic parts rattling against each other.
Is she okay?
He sounded terribly concerned.
Oh, boy.
Well... Gregory tried, carefully picking his words. He couldn't stop the onslaught of images that flashed across his mind's eye of Roxy getting crushed hopelessly beneath the go-kart. Even more vivid was the image of her bolting after him afterwards, howling brokenly, lunging at him with eye sockets spilt over with black blood.
Get back here! You can't run from me!
Her horrified sobs echoed through his mind.
You're still beautiful. You're still beautiful.
Gregory was thankful Evan didn't have to experience that particular event. Gregory was thrilled he had convinced the boy to stay in the atrium, away from the chaos. It didn't seem like he was too keen on seeking out homicidal animatronics anyway, so thankfully the argument had been minimal. The kid didn't need more trauma than he already had. Gregory just hoped Evan was where they had left him. Nothing seems to stop her. Gregory settled on, internally cringing at how backwards his language was. Freddy didn't respond to Gregory's half-hearted, twisted half-truth. He just shook his little ears. The silence hung about them for a bit too long, and Gregory grimaced. Let's go back up top. I don't want to make the kid think we left him, he said, moving to stand directly in front of the animatronic. Freddy sighed and his chest cavity opened, allowing Gregory to enter safely.
I'm not thrilled with the way you're speaking, Gregory.
I don't know what you mean, Freddy, Gregory said, knowing full well what he meant, clambering up into Freddy's chest. He continued before Freddy felt inclined to elaborate. I don't know. It's hot down here, and I heard the moon guy laugh a few minutes ago. We should hurry. The next sigh Freddy drew out was long-suffering, but he didn't say anything else. The stomach plate closed as Gregory snuggled as comfortably as he could against the hard metal and wires. The pair of them entered the nearest elevator and made their way up to the atrium floor above them in tense, dodging silence.